Good evening, all, and welcome back to Farcical Fears. In 2019, a teacher checked her school's security footage after finding something carved inside her locked desk. Her full name and home address in a child's handwriting. What the cameras showed made her quit teaching after 15 years. There was Marcus, her third-grade student, standing motionless in her dark classroom at 3:47 a.m. The school was locked, alarm system armed, every entrance sealed. He stood there for 3 hours, perfectly still, just watching where she sits every day. When she pulled his file the next morning, she discovered something impossible. Marcus Rivera had died in that same classroom 32 years earlier. The photograph in the decades-old file was the exact same child currently sitting in her class. Same face, same unsettling expression. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe to Farcical Fears for daily true horror content that will keep you up at night. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when the darkness calls. Tonight, we're covering 4 real cases that made investigators quit their jobs. Comment, "I survived," if you make it through all 4. Story 1. The Whispering Game. Sarah Chen stood frozen in her empty classroom at 6:30 p.m., staring at her laptop screen in disbelief. The security footage showed something that shouldn't be possible. There was Marcus, her third-grade student, standing motionless in this exact classroom at 3:47 a.m. The school had been locked, alarm system armed, every entrance sealed. But there he stood for 3 solid hours, perfectly still, facing her desk, just watching where she sits every day. When she finally pulled his enrollment file with shaking hands, her blood went cold. Marcus Rivera, enrolled 1986, died January 15th, 1987. The photograph in the file was identical to the child currently sitting in her classroom. Same face, same unsettling expression. A student who'd been dead for 32 years was attending her class. It had begun 6 weeks earlier when Marcus walked into Sarah's classroom mid-October 2019. Perfect posture, perfect grammar. Too perfect for an 8-year-old transfer student. He never ran at recess, never fidgeted, never broke eye contact when speaking. Within 3 days, Sarah noticed something disturbing. Every child Marcus sat next to became withdrawn, stopped raising their hands, started drawing the same symbol in their notebooks, a circle with 7 lines radiating outward. When Sarah asked about it, they'd look at Marcus first, then say nothing. On day 4, Marcus approached her desk during silent reading. "Miss Chen," he said, voice completely flat. "I'm sorry about your baby." Sarah's heart stopped. She'd had a miscarriage 3 months earlier. Told no one at school, not the principal, not other teachers, absolutely no one. "How did you—" she started. Marcus interrupted. "Emma's grandmother died last Tuesday. She doesn't know yet. Her parents are telling her tonight. Should I tell her now? Or would that ruin the surprise?" Emma's grandmother had died last Tuesday. The parents confirmed it that evening. They were planning to tell Emma that night. Marcus couldn't have known. Within 2 weeks, Sarah's classroom transformed into something unrecognizable. Students who were once energetic sat motionless at their desks. 7 kids started arriving before the building opened, standing silently on the dark steps at 6 a.m. The janitor reported finding them just waiting there in the darkness. Not talking, not moving, just standing. When parents were called, they said their children had been sleepwalking, standing in their yards at night, whispering to bedroom walls. Then the accident started. Marcus would mention things minutes before they happened. "The fire alarm will go off in 3 minutes. It did. Electrical malfunction, no explanation. "Tyler's going to fall on the playground today. He'll break his wrist." 20 minutes later, Tyler fell from equipment he'd climbed hundreds of times. Broke his right wrist. Exact prediction. The school counselor interviewed Marcus. Her official report was one sentence. Recommend immediate psychiatric evaluation and removal from general population. She resigned the next day. When asked why, she would only say, "Some things you can't unlearn about children." Sarah started documenting everything with timestamps and photos. That's when she discovered the impossible security footage. Night recording from October 23rd, 3:47 a.m. The school was locked, alarm system armed, every entrance sealed. Security logs showed no breaches. But there was Marcus, standing in the middle of Sarah's dark classroom, perfectly still, facing her desk for 3 solid hours. He never moved, never sat, never even seemed to breathe. Just watched where she sits every day. Security checked every entrance afterward, still locked from the inside. No way in, no way out. When Sarah showed the footage to the principal, they immediately pulled Marcus's file. Marcus Rivera, transferred from Pine Valley Elementary. Parents listed as David and Susan Rivera. Address, 447 Maple Street. Sarah drove there that evening, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. The house was abandoned, windows boarded up, a condemned notice on the door dated 2015. She went to Pine Valley Elementary the next morning, hands shaking as she asked about the transfer. "We've never had a student named Marcus Rivera," the registrar said, confused. Sarah showed the transfer papers, official signatures, school stamps, everything legitimate. The registrar's face drained of color. "This is our letterhead from 1987. We changed it in 1990. Sarah spent hours in the school archives that day, dust covering her clothes as she searched through boxes of old files. She found it buried in records from the 1980s. Marcus Rivera, enrolled September 1986, 3rd grade, died January 15, 1987. Fell down the school stairwell during recess. Multiple student witnesses. They all claimed Marcus tripped. But investigators had noted something disturbing in their report. All children tell identical story, word for word, as if rehearsed or coached. Several students demonstrate unusual knowledge of deceased's family secrets, claiming victim told them private information about their parents before his death. When pressed for details, children become completely unresponsive. Parents refuse to elaborate on what secrets their children claim to know. Case closed due to insufficient evidence of foul play. One detective's handwritten note in the margin read, "This boy knew things no child should know. Maybe they had a reason to push him." The photograph in the 1987 file was the same child sitting in Sarah's 3rd grade classroom right now. Not similar, identical. Same face, same unsettling expression, same too perfect posture, same eyes that seemed to look through you rather than at you. Sarah confronted Marcus the next morning before other students arrived, her lesson plan abandoned on her desk. She showed him the photograph from 1987, her hand trembling. "That's you. You died 32 years. Ago in this school." Marcus smiled for the first time since she'd known him. A cold, knowing smile that belonged on something much older than an 8-year-old's face. "I didn't fall, Miss Chen," he said quietly, his voice losing its childlike quality. "They pushed me, because I knew their secrets, what their parents did behind closed doors, what they hid in basements and attics, the lies they told. Just like I know yours." He leaned closer across her desk, and Sarah noticed for the first time that she couldn't see him breathing. His chest never rose or fell. "I know what you did before you lost the baby. The real reason you think you deserved it. the choice you made that you've never told anyone about. And soon, everyone else will know too, unless you want to join me. The children who pushed me, they're adults now. They have families, secrets of their own, and I visit them sometimes. Their children see me, just like your students see me now. Sarah backed away, grabbed her bag, and ran from the classroom. She called in sick the next day and the day after that. When she finally returned, Marcus was gone. No withdrawal paperwork, no parent contact, no forwarding information. The desk where he'd sat was empty, as if no one had ever been there. The 7 children who'd been sitting near him had no memory of any student named Marcus. When Sarah showed them the class photo from 2 weeks earlier with Marcus clearly visible, they insisted they'd never seen that boy before. School records showed his enrollment papers had vanished from the system entirely. Digital and physical copies, all gone. Ite couldn't explain it. The principal suggested Sarah take a leave of absence for stress. But Sarah knew he was real. Because when she opened her locked desk drawer that afternoon to get her belongings, she found something carved into the wood on the inside panel. Deep grooves that hadn't been there before. Her full name. Her home address that wasn't listed anywhere publicly. And a message in a child's handwriting. "I'll visit you at home now. Sleep well. The ones who pushed me thought they were safe too." Sarah moved 3 times in 2 years. Different cities, unlisted addresses. She even changed her name legally to Emma Thompson. Started over in places where no one knew her history. But last month, August 2024, she received a drawing in the mail at her brand new address that she'd only finalized a week earlier. No return address, no postmark, just delivered somehow. Inside a white envelope, a circle with 7 lines radiating outward, drawn in crayon, and underneath it, a class photo from her current school where she'd just started teaching under her new name. In the back row, barely visible but unmistakably there, stood one extra student that wasn't on the official roster. Same face, same expression, same Marcus, and written on the back in that childlike handwriting, "Found you, again. You can't run from debts, Miss Chen. I have forever. You don't." Story 2. The Collector. Detective James Hartley stood in the barn doorway, hand instinctively resting on his weapon, staring at what no 12-year veteran cop should ever have to see. 4 rooms constructed inside the old barn, each one padlocked from the outside with industrial-grade locks. Each one labeled in neat block letters with a white label maker. Level 1, new arrivals. Level 2, in progress. Level 3, almost done. Level 4, graduated. The 6-year-old girl standing beside him, blonde curls perfectly brushed, pink dress immaculate despite the dusty barn, smiled up at him with empty eyes. "I'm very organized," Lily said in that unnaturally calm voice. "Organization is important for proper collection management. Would you like to see my documentation?" She pulled a small notebook from her dress pocket, the kind elementary students use for spelling practice. Inside, written in careful child's handwriting, detailed plans for poisoning her foster parents, including dose amounts, timeline projections, and the expected date of death. She'd executed a premeditated double homicide at age 6. It had started with an anonymous call that morning, August 14th, 2021, at 7:30 a.m. Someone reported children's voices heard at odd hours from an isolated foster home 40 miles outside Portland, Oregon. The foster parents' car hadn't moved from the driveway in 4 days. Mail was piling up. Standard welfare check. The house sat on 40 acres of dense woods, the nearest neighbor half a mile away down a dirt road. Hartley knocked on the front door. No answer. He circled the property, found the back door unlocked, and called out as he entered. Inside, the kitchen was spotlessly clean, almost surgically so. Breakfast was laid out on the table. Toast, eggs, orange juice, still warm, as if someone had just prepared it. Sitting alone at the head of the table in a chair too big for her, Lily, eating toast and humming quietly to herself. "Hi," she said brightly when she saw him, as if a police officer walking into her home was the most normal thing in the world. "Are you here for my collection?" Hartley did a complete sweep of the house, hand near his weapon, calling out for the foster parents. Nothing. No one. He checked every room, every closet. The house was silent except for the sound of Lily chewing her toast in the kitchen. Records showed the foster home was licensed for 4 children, with 3 currently placed there by the state. "Where are the other children?" Hartley asked, kneeling down to Lily's level, trying to keep his voice gentle. Lily tilted her head, considering his question with an expression far too analytical for a 6-year-old. "They're in my game, part of my project. Would you like to see? I've been working on this for 2 years. I think you'll find my methodology quite impressive." Those were her exact words. Methodology. From a 6-year-old child. She hopped down from her chair and took his hand without hesitation. Her palm felt wrong, cold and dry, like touching paper. "I asked my foster dad to install the special locks on the barn 3 months ago," she explained conversationally as they walked across the yard. "He didn't want to at first, but I convinced him." "How did you convince him?" Hartley asked, alarm bells screaming in his head. Lily pulled a key from her dress pocket, the metal glinting in the morning sun. "I told him that if he didn't install them exactly the way I wanted, I would tell everyone what he does to us at night when his wife is asleep. And I showed him that I had proof. Photographs, audio recordings, dates, and times all documented. Uploaded to 3 separate cloud storage accounts with automatic release protocols if I didn't check in weekly." She said it matter-of-factly, the way another child might describe their homework routine. "He installed the locks the next day. Funny how motivation works when people have something to lose." She unlocked the first heavy padlock with practiced ease, and Hartley immediately radioed for backup, his voice tight. What he found inside made him wish he'd called for more. Level 1 contained personal belongings, arranged with museum-like precision. Clothes folded and stacked, toys organized by type and size, personal items, toothbrushes, books, small treasures, all cataloged with handwritten labels showing names, dates acquired, and detailed descriptions. A laminated spreadsheet hung on the wall tracking progress metrics for 9 different children over a 24-month period. Each name had columns for initial assessment, compliance level, trust building, and extraction date. "These are my subjects," Lily explained, using a wooden pointer like a teacher giving a presentation. "I studied each of them carefully, learned their behavioral patterns, their fears, their breaking points. What stimuli make them cry? What conditions make them obey? What actions build trust or destroy it? Proper data collection requires systematic observation." She tapped the spreadsheet. Subject 7 took the longest to document. He had complex trauma responses that required additional observation periods. Level 2 made Hartley's stomach turn. Dozens of journals lined makeshift shelves, all filled with detailed observations in a child's handwriting. But the vocabulary, the clinical analysis, the psychological terminology, they read like psychiatric case studies written by a doctoral candidate. One entry, dated 3 months prior, was marked with a red star. Subject number 7, Marcus, age 9. Demonstrates increased compliance when subjected to controlled isolation protocols. Reducing food intake by 30% correlates with 67% improvement in obedience metrics. However, foster father remains primary threat variable to project success. Subject number 7 exhibits fear response when foster father is present, compromising data integrity. Decision: must neutralize threat before subject number 7's behavioral patterns deteriorate beyond recovery. Have increased nightly dosage from 0.5 milliliters to 1.2 milliliters accordingly. Expect full incapacitation within 14 to 21 days based on body weight calculations. Another entry made Hartley's hands shake. Subject number 5, Anna, age 7, exhibits concerning signs of Stockholm Syndrome toward foster mother, complicated by possible trauma bonding. This psychological attachment compromises extraction timeline and may result in subject number 5 attempting to protect her abuser. Contingency: may need to accelerate final protocol and proceed to level 4 ahead of schedule. Lily, Hartley said, trying to keep his voice steady. Where is Marcus right now? Where is Anna? Where are all these children? She smiled that empty smile again. In level 4 with the others, detective. Don't worry. They're completely safe now. I protected them. That was the whole point of my project. Protection through systematic intervention. She said it like she was explaining the solution to a math problem. Hartley moved to level 3, his heart pounding. What he found there was evidence that would later be used in court. Photographs printed and organized in labeled folders. Audio recordings on USB drives marked by date and incident number. Video files on external hard drives with detailed logs. Documentation of systematic abuse spanning multiple years. Every instance cataloged, cross-referenced, time-stamped, and backed up. Bruises photographed from multiple angles with date stamps. Recorded conversations where the foster parents discussed how to hide evidence. Financial records showing payments made to social workers to overlook violations. I had to collect proof first, Lily explained in that clinical tone. Previous experience taught me that without admissible evidence, adults dismiss children's testimony. I learned that at my last placement, and at the placement before that, and at the one before that. So this time, I documented everything according to proper forensic protocols. Chain of custody maintained. Evidence admissible in court. No one could dismiss it this time. Hartley reached level 4 with backup arriving outside, their sirens barely registering in his consciousness. His hand shook as he unlocked the final door, expecting bodies, expecting the worst his imagination could conjure. Inside, empty. No children, no bodies. Just a detailed map taped to the wall with 3 locations marked in different colored pins. Addresses were written in neat block letters beside each pin, along with notes like verified clean inspection record, 3 years, and no abuse complaints filed, 5 years, and staff background checks complete. They're safe, Lily said from behind him. I relocated them 3 weeks ago to statistically safe group homes. I spent 6 months researching facilities. Examined inspection records, interviewed former residents through online forums, verified staff credentials, analyzed complaint patterns. These 3 locations had the highest safety probability ratings. I moved each child, personally gave them new identities, coached them on their backstory, and verified their placement. Then I dealt with the primary threat. She pulled out another notebook, this one larger, and handed it to Hartley with both hands, like presenting a school project. Inside, a systematic poisoning plan laid out over 20 pages. Research on household chemical toxicity levels. Calculations based on the foster parents' body weights. A timeline showing gradual dosage increases over 4 months. Common household cleaners contain chemical compounds that, when combined in specific ratios, and administered in small doses over extended periods, create a cumulative toxicity that mimics natural illness, she'd written. I added the mixture to their evening coffee. They both drank decaf every night at 8 p.m., very predictable schedule. Started with minimal doses to establish baseline tolerance. Increased incrementally to avoid detection. Symptoms presented as flu-like illness initially, progressing to organ stress, then failure. Yesterday they were too weak to hurt anyone anymore. So I helped them go to sleep. Permanently. Their bodies are in the root cellar where I calculated decomposition would be slowest due to temperature and humidity levels. I can show you. Backup swarmed the property within minutes. Child services arrived. Forensics teams in white suits. They found the foster parents' bodies exactly where Lily said, in the root cellar beneath the old barn, wrapped in plastic sheeting. Advanced stages of poisoning confirmed. They found the 3 children at the precise locations Lily had provided, all alive, safe, physically unharmed, though psychologically traumatized. Every piece of evidence in Lily's documentation was verified by forensics. Years of systematic abuse. Dozens of victims across multiple placements. A pattern the foster parents had maintained for over a decade, moving from county to county when suspicions arose. All of it had been reported before. Teachers had called, neighbors had complained, even some social workers had raised red flags. But nothing had been done. Files were closed. The foster parents were always given another chance. Until a 6-year-old decided she'd had enough of a broken system and became judge, jury, and executioner. The psychological evaluation of Lily Thompson, age 6, made for chilling reading. Subject demonstrates complete absence of emotional affect when describing torture, abuse, and premeditated murder. No physiological indicators of remorse. No elevated heart rate, no perspiration, no pupil dilation. No fear response when discussing potential consequences of her actions. Describes systematic poisoning and murder in the same neutral, clinical tone as describing breakfast preparation. Multiple intelligence assessments place subject in 99.9th percentile for cognitive ability. However, emotional development appears severely arrested at approximately 18 to 24 months. Empathy testing. Scores indicate possible primary psychopathy. Recommendation: indefinite psychiatric commitment in maximum security facility for minors. Subject presents extreme and ongoing risk to self and others. But the part that haunted Detective Hartley 3 years later, the part that woke him up at night, came from his final interview with Lily before her transfer to the psychiatric facility. "Why didn't you just tell someone?" he'd asked her, sitting across from her in the interview room while she colored with crayons like any normal 6-year-old. A teacher? Another social worker? A police officer like me? Lily had stopped coloring and looked up at him with those empty, ancient eyes that belonged to something much older than 6 years. "I did tell Detective Hartley. At my last home, I told my teacher about what was happening. She reported it. My foster parents were warned. That night, I was locked in a closet for 72 hours with no food. At the home before that, I told a social worker. She believed me. She promised to help. An investigation was opened. My foster parents were given a warning and required to take a parenting class. I was beaten unconscious and told if I ever spoke again, they'd make sure I couldn't. At the home before that one, I told a police officer. He took photos of my bruises, filed a report. My foster parents hired a lawyer. The case was dropped due to insufficient evidence. I was punished for 3 weeks. She went back to her coloring, pressing the red crayon so hard it broke. So I learned, Detective. Bad people don't stop because you tell someone. They don't stop because you gather evidence. They don't stop because you follow the rules. They stop because you make them stop. Permanently. She'd smiled then, and for the first time, Hartley saw actual emotion flicker across her face. Not remorse, not fear. Something like satisfaction. Detective, you seem like a good person. You actually listened to the evidence. You believed the documentation. You took action immediately instead of filing paperwork and forgetting. Most adults don't do that. I only hurt the bad ones. You're safe. She paused, considering. For now, as long as you stay good. 3 years later, Lily remains in a maximum security psychiatric facility for minors in an undisclosed location. Her doctor's most recent progress notes include an observation that keeps Hartley checking his locks at night. Patient has successfully mapped every exit in the facility, has memorized all guard rotation schedules, has befriended all maintenance staff and knows their personal problems, families, and vulnerabilities, has access to cleaning supplies despite protocols. When asked why she's gathering this information, Patient responded, "I like to be prepared, doctor. You never know when you'll need to protect yourself again. Bad people are everywhere, even in places that are supposed to keep children safe." Patient maintains perfect behavioral compliance. Too perfect. Recommend continued maximum observation. Story 3. Birthday Wishes. Helen Voss stared at the 9-year-old boy standing in her bakery, her hands trembling so badly she could barely hold the order pad. "I need a birthday cake," Ethan said quietly, not meeting her eyes. "Chocolate with vanilla frosting. Please write 'Happy Birthday, Helen' on it." Helen's heart thudded, alarm growing inside her. For 6 months, she'd noticed a chilling pattern. Every cake Ethan ordered, every name he supplied, was followed by tragedy. March, David Marks, heart attack. April, Jennifer Paulson, car crash. May, Robert Chen, sudden cancer. June, Angela Foster, a fatal tumble downstairs. July, Thomas Brighton, drowned in his own pool. August, Patricia Hill, lost in a house fire. Each new request, each name, every person died within 3 weeks of their birthday. Helen kept a secret list, unable to shake off the dread. When Ethan returned on a humid August morning and asked for a cake with her own name, she knew her time was numbered. "You have 2 weeks," the boy whispered, his eyes full of terrible apology. "I'm so sorry. I don't want to do this anymore. But he says I have to, or I'll be sick again." Months of confusion exploded into terror, and Helen decided to investigate. She found out every victim hid a dark secret. David's hit-and-run buried by hush money, Jennifer's embezzling from elderly clients, Robert's predatory abuse of co-workers settled out of court, Angela's dismissed child abuse case. Ethan's choices weren't random. Someone was collecting debts. Determined to uncover the truth and desperate for answers, Helen tracked down Ethan's mother, Grace. In a tearful, anxious conversation, Grace revealed that Ethan should have died months earlier. Diagnosed with terminal leukemia, doctors gave him just weeks to live. But on March 15th, his 9th birthday, Ethan made a desperate wish over a cake in his hospital bed. Overnight, his condition stabilized. Within days, cancer markers dropped. Then, the visit started. "He appears at midnight," Ethan confided to his mother. "A man in an old birthday hat. He tells me who needs a cake, who did something really bad. He says if I deliver the cake, I get another month. If I don't, I'll get sick again." When Ethan's mother tried to stop the ritual, the mysterious figure left bruises on her son's arms, scars too large for any adult hand, shaped like fingers gripping tight. Racked with guilt, Helen searched her own history, finally facing the crime she'd hidden for years. A hit and run that crippled a man, covered up with a bribe. She visited Ethan one last time, putting her fate in his hands. "Tell him I accept," Helen said to the boy. "After me, the deal ends. No more cakes. Let Ethan go free." Ethan listened, tears on his cheeks, then nodded. "He says if you're willing, you'll break the contract. But you have to mean it." Helen accepted. On the 14th day, she died in her sleep, her note found folded beneath her pillow. At the funeral, Ethan placed a cake beside her casket, whispering, "I'm sorry," and hugged his mother for the first time in months. For 3 weeks, everything seemed normal. Ethan played, smiled, and talked about starting school again. But then, suddenly, he collapsed, rushed to the hospital. His cancer returned with vengeance. He died within 2 days. Investigators pieced together the impossible. Helen's death had not only spared Ethan, but also released the force that kept his illness at bay. The autopsy showed his original cancer never truly left. It had been held back by something unnatural. The night Ethan died, Sweet Memories Bakery burned to the ground, though one item survived the blaze unmarred. A birthday cake on the counter, inscribed with a new name. "Happy birthday, Michael Torres." That man, Michael, perished 3 weeks later, his secret criminal life exposed after death. Ethan's pact hadn't ended. It simply moved on, always finding another lost soul willing to bargain, another debt to collect. Story 4. The Babysitter's Interview. Mia Rodriguez stood in the locked living room, phone signal completely dead, watching 2 11-year-old twins sit calmly on the couch and explain that she was test subject number 6. Chloe consulted a tablet with the detached precision of a corporate executive, scrolling through data with her small fingers. College student, single mother and family structure, significant debt accumulation. You fit our desired psychological profile perfectly. Caleb pulled up photographs on his own screen. Images of Mia at campus, leaving her apartment building, sitting in the coffee shop she frequented every Tuesday and Thursday morning. 3 weeks of surveillance documented in clinical detail. We've been monitoring your communications, mapping your behavioral schedule, and assessing your psychological baseline for threat response, he explained in a voice far too clinical for an 11-year-old. Your financial desperation made you ignore obvious warning signs during the interview process. That cognitive dissonance provides valuable data for our research parameters. Mia tried the front door again, her hands shaking, deadbolted, requiring a key from the inside that she didn't have. Windows, locked with security bars that looked far too permanent for a family home. Her phone had suddenly lost all signal the moment the parents' car pulled out of the driveway. The house underwent professional soundproofing modifications 6 months ago, Chloe added, making notes on her tablet without looking up. The Johnson family next door receives $500 weekly compensation to ignore any disturbances they might hear. We conducted extensive cost-benefit analysis. It's more economical than additional structural soundproofing and provides a human buffer for plausible deniability. They were 11 years old, talking about human experiments and cost-benefit analyses like they were discussing a school project. It had started 3 weeks earlier with a job posting on the University Employment Board that seemed too good to be true. Babysitter needed, 50 per hour, light duties, flexible schedule. For a 19-year-old college sophomore drowning in tuition debt, rent payments, and the constant pressure to help her struggling family, it was impossible to pass up. Most babysitting jobs paid $12 to $15 an hour. $50 was life-changing money. The interview had been strange from the beginning. Mr. and Mrs. Ashford seemed nervous, their instructions overly specific and delivered with an urgency that felt wrong. The children's bedtime is 8 p.m. sharp. Never deviate from this schedule under any circumstances. If they ask to play games of any kind, politely decline. Television only. If anything unusual happens, anything at all, call us immediately. Don't engage with them beyond basic supervision. Mrs. Ashford had gripped Mia's hand hard enough to leave marks, her eyes pleading. Please, just follow the rules exactly, as we've explained them. It's very important. Red flags everywhere, screaming danger. But $50 an hour for what seemed like easy work, watching two well-behaved 11-year-olds. Mia had taken the job. Her first night was Friday, September 17th, 2024. The Ashfords' home was impressive and unsettling in equal measure. Located in an exclusive gated community, sophisticated security system with cameras visible in every single room, motion sensors on all the doors. For safety, Mr. Ashford had explained, but his eyes told a different story. Fear, deep, bone-tired fear. The twins, Chloe and Caleb, with identical blonde hair cut to identical lengths, were eerily polite when they met her. "It's nice to meet you, Mia," they said in perfect unison, their voices completely flat and emotionless. The parents left at 7 p.m. for a dinner appointment, promising to return by 11. For the first hour, everything seemed normal. The twins sat on the couch watching a nature documentary about predators, completely silent, barely moving. Mia scrolled through her phone, relieved that the job seemed easy. At 8 p.m., she sent them to bed as instructed. They went without a single complaint, walking upstairs in synchronized steps. Too compliant, too easy. At 8:15, Mia heard footsteps upstairs. Movement, whispered conversation. She went to check on them, assuming they were having trouble settling down. What she found at the top of the stairs made her blood run cold. The children's bedroom doors had locks, but not on the inside where children could lock themselves in for privacy. On the outside, industrial-grade deadbolts, the kind used on storage units or prison cells. The kind meant to keep people trapped inside. She tried the front door immediately, her heart hammering. Locked. The deadbolt required a key from the inside, a key the Ashfords had taken with them. Windows throughout the house, locked with permanent security bars. Her phone. No signal, Wi-Fi network suddenly password protected when it had been open an hour ago. Behind her, slow, deliberate clapping echoed through the silent house. The twins stood at the top of the stairs, still in their matching pajamas, smiling identical, empty smiles. 17 minutes and 43 seconds, Caleb said, checking a watch that looked expensive on his small wrist. Faster than Subject 4. She took 29 minutes to notice the exterior locks and attempt escape. But slower than Subject 2, Chloe added, making a notation on a tablet she'd produced from somewhere. She noticed the security discrepancies at 13 minutes and 11 seconds. Subject 2 had prior experience with home security systems from her father's profession. That gave her pattern recognition advantages. Mia's voice came out as a whisper. "What is this? What's happening?" The twins descended the stairs in perfect synchronized steps, like mirror images of each other. They sat on the couch, arranged themselves with practiced precision, and gestured formally for Mia to sit in the chair facing them. "This is our longitudinal study," Chloe explained, her voice taking on the cadence of a university lecturer. "We're conducting behavioral psychology research, specifically measuring stress response patterns under controlled environmental conditions with perceived threat escalation. Your test subject number 6, Caleb continued, pulling up files on his tablet and turning the screen so Mia could see her own face staring back at her. College student, 19 years old. Family structure includes single mother and 2 younger siblings, significant accumulated debt from tuition and living expenses. Psychological profile suggests high financial stress leading to compromised risk assessment capabilities. You ignored multiple warning indicators during the interview process because you needed the monetary compensation. That's textbook cognitive dissonance under economic duress. Fascinating data point. Mia lunged for the door, tried the windows again, screamed for neighbors as loud as she could. The twins didn't move, didn't even flinch. They simply watched her with those empty, analytical eyes. The Johnson family next door receives $500 weekly. Chloe repeated patiently. We've tested the arrangement multiple times. They don't respond to auditory disturbances from this property. We've also documented the maximum decibel level at which sounds from this house become audible at their property line. You'd need to sustain approximately 120 decibels for 7 minutes. That's beyond human vocal capabilities without amplification. Mia's phone suddenly buzzed in her pocket. Signal mysteriously restored. Messages flooded in. Texts from her mother, her roommate, her sister, all sent over the past 2 hours while she'd been in this house. Messages she'd never received. We've been intercepting your mobile communications for 3 weeks, Caleb explained matter-of-factly. Initial surveillance phase required comprehensive data gathering. We needed complete psychological profiles before final subject selection. Your communication patterns, social relationships, financial records, medical history, academic performance, all documented. The twins showed her a complete dossier that made her stomach turn. Photographs of her walking to classes, entering her apartment building, studying in the library, her complete class schedule, her social security number, bank account statements showing every transaction, every overdraft, every desperate transfer to her mother, medical records from her student health center, family background information that should have been private. How did you get all this? She whispered. Publicly available information combined with basic social engineering techniques, Chloe said, as if it were obvious. Humans are remarkably careless with personal data protection. You use the same password, your mother's maiden name plus your birth year, for 6 different accounts including banking and email. Your security questions use information readily available on social media. Your apartment building has package theft issues, so residents leave packages with the front desk clerk who doesn't verify identity. Elementary operational security failures. Caleb pulled up spreadsheets, graphs, behavioral charts. Previous 5 subjects faced escalating psychological challenges designed to measure cortisol response, problem-solving capabilities under duress, moral threshold degradation, and breaking point identification. Subject 1 developed acute post-traumatic stress disorder and required psychiatric hospitalization. Subjects 2 and 3 passed our experimental parameters and were released with non-disclosure agreements and monetary compensation of $10,000 each. Subjects 4 and 5. He paused, exchanging a glance with his sister. Failed to meet acceptable parameters. What does that mean? Mia asked, her voice barely audible. What happened to subjects 4 and 5? The twins exchanged another look, but didn't answer. The implication hung in the air, heavy and terrible. Why are you doing this? Mia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. What do you want? The twins sat up straighter, as if they'd been waiting for this question. We're building a comprehensive database for future application, Caleb explained. People like us, individuals with significantly elevated intelligence quotients combined with reduced emotional affect, statistically achieve positions of substantial power and influence. Senators, CEOs, federal judges, intelligence operatives, corporate executives. but we lack experiential understanding of normal human emotional response patterns. So we're conducting applied research, learning to accurately mimic empathy, how to manipulate emotional reactions, how to predict behavioral responses under various stress conditions. Social engineering at scale requires practical, hands-on experience. They were training themselves to pass as human by practicing on victims. 11-year-old psychopaths building a manual for manipulation. Our parents discovered our experimental protocols approximately 2 years ago, Chloe added conversationally. Initial reaction was predictable horror and threatened intervention. We showed them documented evidence of their tax fraud, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, falsified business expenses, shell corporations. We offered them 2 options: full cooperation with our research or federal prosecution with guaranteed prison sentences and complete financial ruin. They chose cooperation within 48 hours. They're prisoners too, Caleb said. Different parameters than you, but still controlled through mutually assured destruction. They provide social cover, maintain appearances of normal family structure, facilitate subject acquisition, and follow our instructions precisely. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement, built on leverage. Mia forced her mind to work through the panic. What happens if I pass your test? Non-disclosure agreement, $10,000 cash compensation, and we terminate all contact permanently, Chloe said. Standard protocol for successful subjects. And if I fail? The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Caleb smiled, and it was the most frightening thing Mia had seen. We've never had to answer that question to a survivor. But then Mia noticed something crucial in their methodical explanation. The twins had shown her everything, revealed their entire system, explained their surveillance techniques, demonstrated their methods. Intelligent psychopaths' fatal flaw: arrogance. They believed they were untouchable, that their control was absolute. I want to try your test, Mia said, forcing her voice to sound calm and defeated. What do I have to do? The twins smiled, finally getting the response they wanted. For the next 2 hours, they put Mia through systematic psychological torture. Trolley problem scenarios where she had to choose which person lived or died. Moral dilemmas with no acceptable answers. Stress positions while answering increasingly personal questions. All recorded from multiple angles. All measured with biometric equipment they'd set up. Mia played along, pretending to break down at calculated moments, giving them the data they seemed to expect. But the entire time, she was memorizing. Every camera angle, every blind spot, every pattern in their behavior. The security system's vulnerabilities, the way they moved. Their arrogant assumption that she was helpless. At 11 p.m., the parents returned. The twins declared Mia had passed experimental parameters with acceptable compliance scores. They offered her a non-disclosure agreement and a check for $10,000. Mia signed with shaking hands, playing the role of grateful survivor. She took the money. She left smiling. The twins thought they'd won. But Mia went to the police the next morning with everything. The NDA, the check, detailed accounts of the entire night. Chloe and Caleb were brought in for questioning with their parents present and lawyers already arranged. The twins sat across from detectives and calmly explained that they'd been playing elaborate games with a willing participant who misunderstood the nature of role-play scenarios. The parents corroborated every word with practiced precision. Said Mia had seemed emotionally unstable during the interview. Suggested she might have misinterpreted children's imaginative games. No physical evidence of crimes, no other victims willing to come forward, NDAs and fear-ensured silence. The case was closed within 48 hours. 2 weeks later, Mia received a package at her apartment. No return address, no postmark, just delivered somehow. Inside, a USB drive and a typed note on expensive paper. The drive contained professionally edited footage from the night she'd babysat, showing her successfully passing their tests, demonstrating her moral flexibility under pressure, her willingness to compromise her ethics for survival. The note read, "Congratulations, Mia Rodriguez. You passed at the 94th percentile, significantly higher than projected models predicted. People like you, intelligent, adaptive, willing to endure extreme conditions for survival, represent valuable assets for future deployment. We're building a comprehensive network database for implementation in 7 years when we achieve legal majority and financial independence. You're now part of our registry. We'll contact you when we're 18 with resources and no parental oversight restrictions. Don't attempt to run or hide. We'll always know your location. This is not a threat. It's a promise. We're very patient. CNC." Mia burned the USB drive immediately, changed her phone number, moved to a different state entirely, found a new apartment under a different name, told no one where she was going. That was 8 months ago. Last week, October 2024, she received an email from an anonymous sender to an email address she'd created just 3 days earlier and told no one about. Subject line, 7 years minus 8 months. Body completely empty except for one attachment. A photograph. High resolution. Time-stamped yesterday. It showed Mia leaving her new apartment building, the address she hadn't given to anyone, the place she thought was finally safe. In the corner of the image, barely visible in the window reflection, 2 blonde children watching from across the street. The twins are still watching, still documenting, still collecting data, still preparing. They're patient. In 6 years and 4 months, Chloe and Caleb will turn 18. Legal adults, free from parental oversight. With years of refined psychological experimentation, documented manipulation techniques, and a complete database of useful individuals they've identified, tested, and now control through fear and leverage. And they'll be ready to implement whatever they've been planning. I notice you're asking for a 5th story, but the original video concept was titled 4 Real Scary Stories About Evil Kids. The outline and previous stories I've written were designed as a 4-story structure. However, I can create a 5th story for you if you'd like to extend the video. Here's Story 5. Story 5. The Perfect Son. Dr. Rebecca Winters sat across from the 16-year-old boy in the sterile psychiatric evaluation room, reviewing his file with growing unease. Noah Bennett, straight-A student, debate team captain, volunteer at the local animal shelter, 3 younger siblings who adored him, parents who called him their perfect son. And according to the detective's report in her hands, he'd systematically destroyed 5 families over the past 2 years without ever being suspected until 3 days ago. The evidence was irrefutable. Digital footprints, recorded conversations, financial trails. But the boy sitting before her, with his earnest eyes and polite smile, looked incapable of hurting anyone. "Dr. Winters," Noah said softly, "I want to help you understand. I'm not a monster. I'm a conservationist." It had started 18 months earlier, when the Richardsons moved in next door to the Bennett family. Tom Richardson was loud, aggressive, the kind of man who screamed at his wife in the driveway and kicked their dog when he thought no one was watching. Noah had watched from his bedroom window, documenting everything with the calm precision of a scientist observing specimens. Within 3 weeks, Noah had befriended the Richardsons' 12-year-old daughter, Emma. He was 16, respectful, offered to help her with algebra homework. The parents were thrilled their troubled daughter had found such a positive influence. What they didn't know was that Noah was teaching Emma far more than mathematics. Noah had spent months building Emma's trust, learning every detail of her father's routine, his secrets, his weaknesses. Tom Richardson had a gambling problem he hid from his wife. He'd embezzled money from his employer to cover debts. Noah helped Emma find the evidence, then carefully coached her on exactly how to report it, anonymously, with perfect documentation, to the right authorities at the right time. Tom Richardson lost his job, faced criminal charges, and eventually his wife left him. The family disintegrated within 6 months. Emma's mother moved to another state with the children. Tom Richardson, alone and facing prison, died by suicide in his garage. One down, Noah had written in his journal. 4 more identified. The ecosystem is improving. The Carters were next. Marcus Carter was Emma's stepfather after her mother remarried quickly, desperate for financial stability. But Noah had researched Marcus thoroughly and discovered something the rushed background check had missed. A sealed juvenile record for assault, connections to individuals with restraining orders against them. Noah didn't expose Marcus immediately. Instead, he cultivated a friendship with Marcus and Emma's mother, Diane, becoming the trusted family friend who helped with yard work and ran errands. Over months, Noah carefully documented Marcus's controlling behavior, his volatile temper, his disturbing comments about Emma that crossed boundaries. When Marcus finally acted on his predatory instincts one night, Noah was ready with hidden cameras, time-stamped evidence, and a detailed report already prepared for authorities. Marcus was arrested within hours. Diane had a complete breakdown, hospitalized for psychiatric care. Emma was placed in foster care for the 3rd time in 2 years. Her stability completely shattered. The Patterson family lived 3 blocks away. Wealthy, influential, with 2 sons Noah's age and a daughter who'd recently attempted suicide. Noah inserted himself into their social circle through the debate team, becoming best friends with the older Patterson son, Tyler. Over family dinners and weekend outings, Noah observed and documented. He discovered that Mr. Patterson, a prominent attorney, was having an affair with his paralegal. Mrs. Patterson was self-medicating with prescription drugs stolen from her sister's pharmacy. The younger son was selling exam answers to other students. The family was a facade of perfection, hiding systematic dysfunction. Noah began strategically revealing pieces of the truth. An anonymous tip about the pharmacy thefts. A carefully leaked photo of Mr. Patterson with his mistress sent to Mrs. Patterson's phone from an untraceable number. Evidence of the cheating ring delivered to the school principal. Within 4 months, Mr. Patterson lost his law license for ethics violations. Mrs. Patterson entered rehab. The children were split between relatives. The house was foreclosed. Tyler, Noah's best friend, dropped out of school entirely, and was last seen living in his car. The Hendersons were the 4th family. Mrs. Henderson taught at Noah's school, his English teacher, beloved by students, nominated for Teacher of the Year. But Noah had noticed things others missed. The way she favored certain male students, the inappropriate comments disguised as jokes, the closed-door meetings that lasted too long. Noah became her favorite student, stayed after class, accepted rides home, let her believe he was receptive to her increasingly inappropriate attention, all while recording everything. When he finally had irrefutable evidence of grooming behavior spanning multiple students over several years, he didn't go to administration. He sent the evidence to the superintendent, the school board, local news stations, and parents of current and former students simultaneously. Mrs. Henderson was arrested within 24 hours. Her husband, unable to process the revelation, suffered a massive stroke brought on by the stress. Their teenage daughter faced relentless bullying at school for her mother's crimes and attempted suicide twice. The family moved out, family of state. But the criminal case and civil lawsuits followed them. They lost everything. The fifth family was the Morgans, and this is where Noah's pattern finally became visible to authorities. The Morgans were foster parents to 3 children, including Emma Richardson, now Emma Martin, under her latest placement. Noah had stayed in contact with Emma through everything, positioning himself as her only stable relationship, the one person who truly understood her trauma. When Emma was placed with the Morgans, Noah saw his opportunity to complete what he privately called his conservation project. The Morgans seemed perfect on paper. Background checks clear, home studies approved, recommendations glowing. But Noah didn't trust systems. He launched his own investigation, and within weeks, he'd identified what social services had missed. Mrs. Morgan had a sealed record from another state under her maiden name. Financial irregularities suggesting the Morgans fostered children primarily for the state stipend. A pattern of foster children who'd stayed with them briefly before requesting emergency transfers with vague complaints. Noah went to work with methodical precision. He befriended the Morgans' biological son, gained access to their home, installed hidden monitoring equipment, and began documenting. What he discovered was worse than he'd anticipated, not physical abuse, but systematic emotional manipulation designed to keep foster children compliant and traumatized enough that they'd never be successfully adopted and leave the lucrative cycle. The Morgans were running a long-term income scheme using vulnerable children. Noah collected 6 months of evidence, then made his move. But this time, Detective Sarah Patel was already investigating the string of destroyed families connected to Emma Richardson. When the Morgan case broke and Emma's name appeared again, Patel finally saw the pattern. One person connected to every single family. Noah Bennett, the perfect teenage boy who helped everyone and hurt no one. Except he'd destroyed 5 families completely, left 3 children dead by suicide or stress-related health crises, and created cascading trauma affecting dozens of lives. And when confronted with the evidence, Noah didn't deny anything. "I call it conservation," Noah explained to Dr. Winters during their evaluation, his voice calm and measured. "Bad elements damage the ecosystem. I identify them, document them, and remove them systematically. Yes, there's collateral damage. But long-term, the community is healthier. Emma Richardson was being abused. I saved her. That her father died afterward? He was abusive and criminal. Society is better without him. Mrs. Henderson was a predator. I exposed her before she could victimize more students. The Pattersons were teaching their children that lying and cheating were acceptable if you were wealthy enough. I corrected that. The Morgans were exploiting vulnerable children for profit. I stopped them. Everything I did improved the overall system." He leaned forward, absolutely sincere. "I understand the methods seem harsh, but I'm not causing the harm, I'm revealing it. These families were already broken. I just accelerated the inevitable collapse." Dr. Winters reviewed her notes with a growing sense of horror. Noah's psychological testing showed him to be highly intelligent, with complete emotional detachment, and an absolute certainty in his own moral superiority. He'd developed a God complex disguised as altruism, genuinely believing he was improving society through systematic destruction. "The collateral damage," Dr. Winters said carefully. "Tom Richardson's suicide, the Patterson daughter's suicide attempts, Tyler Patterson homeless and traumatized, Mrs. Henderson's husband's stroke, Emma Richardson shattered by repeated destabilization. You understand you directly contributed to immense suffering?" Noah considered this thoughtfully. Short-term suffering for long-term benefit. I'm not a sadist, Dr. Winters. I don't enjoy their pain. But I accept it as necessary. Bad elements must be removed for the ecosystem to thrive. If I see a diseased tree in a forest, I don't leave it there because removing it might disturb the birds nesting in its branches. I remove the disease to save the forest. The evaluation concluded with the most disturbing revelation. Noah had maintained detailed journals documenting not just the 5 families he'd destroyed, but 43 additional subjects he'd identified, and was monitoring for intervention necessity. Families throughout their community, all being secretly observed, documented, and assessed by a 16-year-old who'd appointed himself judge, jury, and executioner. I know I'll be confined now, Noah said as guards came to escort him back to the juvenile detention facility. I accept that consequence. But Dr. Winters, you should know, I'm not unique. There are others like me. We communicate online, share methodology, discuss cases. We call ourselves conservationists. We're in schools, neighborhoods, youth groups everywhere. And we're very patient. I've been removed from the ecosystem, yes. But the network continues. Someone else will monitor my identified subjects. The work continues. It always continues. 3 months later, Dr. Winters received an email from an untraceable address. Subject line: "Thank you for understanding." Body: "Noah's case study has been invaluable for improving methodology. The network appreciates his sacrifice in testing certain techniques publicly so we can refine them privately. 43 subjects have been reassigned to other operatives. Several have been removed from the priority list based on Noah's documentation. 3 have been escalated for immediate intervention. We're everywhere. We're patient. And we genuinely believe we're saving the world, one destroyed family at a time. Noah made mistakes. He worked too quickly, created too obvious a pattern, got emotionally invested in specific outcomes. We've learned from his errors. You'll never notice us. We're the perfect students, the trusted volunteers, the kids everyone loves. Until the day someone you know loses everything and never understands why." The Conservation Network. Story 6. The Memory Keeper. The social worker found 10-year-old Isabel sitting alone in the burnt remains of her family's home, untouched by flames, surrounded by photographs she'd carefully arranged in a perfect circle around her. Every photo showed the same thing: her parents, her older brother, her younger sister, all smiling, all alive. All dead now, according to the fire marshal's report. The house had burned for 6 hours, temperatures reaching over 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Nothing should have survived. But Isabel sat in the center of the destruction in her pink nightgown, without a single burn mark, organizing photographs that shouldn't exist because the family had stored all their photos digitally, never printing physical copies. "I needed to remember them correctly," Isabel said when the social worker asked why she was arranging the photos, "before they forget who they really were." The fire had started at 2:47 a.m. on October 3rd, 2023, in the suburban home of the Morrison family. Neighbors reported seeing flames engulf the 2-story house within minutes, the fire spreading with impossible speed. By the time firefighters arrived, the structure was already collapsing. They found 4 bodies in the wreckage: Michael Morrison, age 42, Sarah Morrison, age 39, Daniel Morrison, age 15, and Emma Morrison, age 7. All dead from smoke inhalation before the flames reached them, according to the autopsy reports. All found in their beds, as if they'd never woken up, never tried to escape. Except Isabel, age 10, discovered 12 hours later sitting in the ash-covered remains of what had been the living room, completely unharmed, surrounded by photographs that forensics couldn't explain. The investigation grew stranger when detectives examined the photos Isabel had been arranging. Each photograph looked professionally taken, perfectly composed, showing the Morrison family in various settings: holidays, birthdays, casual moments at home. But neighbors couldn't remember these events ever happening. The beach vacation photo showed the family at a seaside location, but Michael Morrison's work records showed he hadn't taken vacation time in 3 years. The birthday party photo showed Emma turning 7 with dozens of friends. But Emma had been homeschooled, and according to teachers at her former school, had struggled with social anxiety and had no friends. The Christmas photo showed the family opening presents in front of an elaborately decorated tree. But the Morrisons' credit card statements showed no purchases for Christmas decorations or gifts last December. Each photograph documented events that had never occurred. When questioned, Isabel explained in that eerily calm voice that became familiar to investigators. They were forgetting. Mom forgot what it felt like to be happy. Dad forgot he used to laugh. Daniel forgot he wanted to be an artist. Emma forgot she was brave. They were all forgetting who they were supposed to be, so they were becoming the wrong versions. I had to fix it. I had to help them remember. Social services placed Isabel with her aunt, Catherine, who lived 2 states away. Catherine hadn't seen her niece in 5 years due to family estrangement, but agreed to take custody. Within 2 weeks, Catherine called the social worker in tears, begging for Isabel to be removed from her home. Catherine described waking up each night to find Isabel standing beside her bed, staring at her with unblinking eyes. "She watches me sleep," Catherine explained, her voice shaking. "And when I wake up, she asks me questions." "Do you remember who you really are, Aunt Catherine? Do you remember what you wanted before you gave up? Do you remember the version of yourself you were supposed to become?" She has photographs too. Photos of me that don't exist. Me at college graduation, I dropped out sophomore year. Me at my wedding, I never married. Me holding a baby, I never had children. She shows me these photos and says, "This is who you were supposed to be. This is who you're forgetting." Catherine had thrown the photographs away multiple times, but they always reappeared, arranged around her bed while she slept. "I'm scared of that child," Catherine admitted. "There's something wrong with her. Something that isn't quite human anymore." Psychological evaluation of Isabel Morrison, age 10, revealed a child of above-average intelligence with unusual fixation on memory, identity, and correct versions of reality. When asked about the fire, Isabel showed no emotional distress. "They were happier after," she explained simply. "In the fire, they forgot all the sad parts. They forgot the arguing and the crying and the way they'd stopped loving each other. Now they only remember the good version, the version I kept safe for them in the photographs. They're perfect now." The psychologist noted, "Subject appears to genuinely believe she can alter reality or memories through photographs. Shows no understanding that her family members are deceased. Refers to them in present tense. When corrected, subject becomes agitated and insists, they're more alive now than they were before." Catherine's situation deteriorated rapidly. She began missing work, claiming she couldn't sleep because Isabel was editing her memories. She described finding more photographs each day, each one showing a version of her life that had never happened. A successful career she'd never pursued, relationships she'd never had, achievements that existed only in these impossible images. "She's trying to make me forget who I really am," Catherine sobbed during an emergency call to social services. "She wants me to become the person in the photographs. But that person isn't me. That person never existed." On November 15, 2023, Catherine Morrison was found dead in her home, an apparent suicide. She'd overdosed on sleeping pills, but the scene disturbed investigators. Catherine's body was surrounded by hundreds of photographs, all showing versions of her life that neighbors, co-workers, and friends confirmed had never happened. And sitting beside her aunt's body was Isabel, carefully arranging more photos. She was so close to remembering, Isabel told the detective who found them. Just a few more days and she would have understood. She would have become the right version. But she gave up too soon. Adults always give up. The detective, Marcus Webb, a 20-year veteran, later admitted that Isabel's calm acceptance of her aunt's death disturbed him more than any crime scene he'd witnessed. She wasn't sad. She wasn't scared. She was disappointed, like her aunt had failed a test. Isabel was placed in a psychiatric facility for evaluation and treatment. Within 3 days, staff members began reporting strange occurrences. Nurses would find photographs in their lockers, images of themselves in situations they didn't remember. A senior psychologist discovered photos showing her with a husband who died 10 years earlier, except in the photos he was alive. And they were celebrating their recent anniversary. The photos look real, the psychologist reported. Professional quality. But these events never happened. My husband died in 2013. These photos are dated 2023. Staff members who worked directly with Isabel began experiencing what they described as memory confusion. They'd recall conversations that hadn't happened, remember seeing Isabel in places she'd never been, describe events involving her that security footage proved had never occurred. Dr. Lawrence Chen, the facility's director, documented his own experience. I have clear memories of Isabel being here for 6 months, but records show she's only been here 19 days. I remember conversations with her from months ago, but those conversations are impossible. I remember her asking me about my daughter, asking if I remembered my daughter's real smile, her real laugh. But I've never told Isabel I have a daughter. And this morning, I found a photograph in my office. It shows my daughter, Emily, smiling. But Emily died 3 years ago. She was killed by a drunk driver. She never smiled like the girl in this photograph. But I remember that smile now. I remember it being real. Isabel is changing my memories. The facility attempted to isolate Isabel, limiting her contact with staff. But the photographs continued appearing. One nurse found a photo showing herself as a concert pianist, a dream she'd abandoned 20 years ago. I can remember the recitals now, she told Dr. Chen, crying. I remember performing at Carnegie Hall, but I never did that. I gave up piano when I was 16. These aren't my memories, but they feel real. She's putting things in my head that never existed. Another staff member discovered photos of himself with children he'd never had, in a marriage that had never happened, living a life he'd once wanted but never achieved. It's like she's showing us the people we could have been, he explained, the versions of ourselves we gave up on. And the longer I look at the photos, the more I remember that life, even though I know it never happened. On December 1st, 2023, 4 staff members didn't show up for their shifts. When police conducted welfare checks, they found all 4 dead in their homes. No signs of violence, no apparent cause of death. But each scene was identical. Bodies surrounded by photographs showing impossible lives. Versions of themselves that had never existed. Autopsies revealed the same cause across all 4 cases. Their brains showed unusual activity patterns, as if they'd experienced severe trauma or shock. It's like their minds couldn't handle conflicting memories, the medical examiner explained. Their brains were trying to process two different versions of reality simultaneously. The life they'd actually lived and the life shown in these photographs. The cognitive dissonance appears to have caused a cascade failure. Isabel remained calm when questioned about the deaths. "They remembered," she said simply. "They finally understood who they were supposed to be. But their bodies forgot how to exist in this wrong version of reality." It happens sometimes. Adults are complicated. The facility attempted to transfer Isabel to a maximum security psychiatric hospital. But during transport, the vehicle was involved in an accident. The driver claimed a child ran into the road. Security footage showed no child. The vehicle swerved, crashed through a guardrail, and tumbled down an embankment. Both transport officers were killed. Isabel walked away without injury, found hours later at a playground, taking photographs of children with a camera that hadn't been in the transport vehicle. When police asked where she'd gotten the camera, Isabel smiled. "I've always had it. You just don't remember correctly." Investigation into Isabel Morrison's background revealed disturbing information that hadn't been uncovered initially. The Morrison family had been seeing a family therapist for 2 years before the fire, documenting severe dysfunction, parental conflict, financial stress, depression, anxiety. The therapist's notes described the family as in crisis with deteriorating relationships. Daniel had been hospitalized twice for suicide attempts. Emma had stopped speaking. Sarah Morrison had filed for divorce 3 times but withdrew each time. Michael Morrison had been fired from his job for erratic behavior, and Isabel had been documenting all of it. Child Services found her room in the burned house had been partially protected by a fireproof safe. Inside, thousands of photographs, all taken by Isabel. But unlike the photographs she showed authorities, these photos documented the truth. Her brother's hospital visits, her sister crying, her parents screaming at each other, the visible decay of a family falling apart. And notes in Isabel's handwriting. "This is the wrong version. They're forgetting who they're supposed to be. I need to fix it. I need to help them remember the right version. Fire makes people forget. Fire creates new memories. Fire can fix everything." The implication was inescapable. Isabel had set the fire. She'd killed her family. But not out of malice, out of a delusional belief that she could erase their pain, rewrite their memories, and create a correct version of their lives through death and impossible photographs. Isabel Morrison remains missing. After the transport accident, she vanished. There have been reported sightings across multiple states, always the same description. A 10-year-old girl with dark hair and eerily calm eyes, carrying a camera, approaching people and asking, "Do you remember who you really are?" Those who've encountered her and accepted photographs from her report the same experience. Memories of lives they never lived, achievements they never accomplished, relationships that never existed. Some describe it as comforting, seeing the person they could have been. Others describe it as psychological torture, their minds unable to reconcile the false memories with reality. And a small percentage simply disappear, found days later dead in their homes, surrounded by photographs of impossible lives, their brains having shut down, trying to process conflicting versions of reality. The FBI maintains an open case file on Isabel Morrison, but investigators admit they have no effective way to locate or apprehend her. Detective Webb, who found Catherine Morrison's body, has experienced his own encounters with Isabel's photographs. He finds them in his car, his office, his home. Images showing his daughter, who died of cancer at age 6, healthy and grown. I see her graduation, her wedding, her holding my grandchild. Lives she never got to live. And I can remember these events now, even though I know they're not real. Isabel is giving me memories of the life my daughter should have had. Sometimes I think it's a gift. Sometimes I think it's the cruelest torture imaginable. He keeps the photographs in a locked safe in his basement, unable to destroy them, but terrified of looking at them too long. Because the more I look, the more I remember. And soon, I won't be able to tell the difference between what really happened and what Isabel wants me to believe happened. And maybe that's when I'll end up like the others, surrounded by impossible photographs, my brain unable to handle two versions of reality, dying because I can't remember correctly anymore. Isabel's last known communication was a letter sent to Dr. Chen 6 months after her disappearance. It contained a single photograph showing Dr. Chen's deceased daughter smiling, healthy, alive, and a handwritten note. I'm helping people remember who they were supposed to be. The world is full of people who forgot, who became wrong versions of themselves, who gave up on the life they were meant to live. I can fix them. I can help them remember. One photograph at a time, one corrected memory at a time. You'll understand soon, Dr. Chen. Everyone understands eventually. Some people just need more help remembering.